YouTube. We're also on Instagram. So wherever you're tuning in from, welcome. So good to see everyone again. And welcome back to a new month. I hope you guys all enjoyed your long weekend. We are now into August, which is super exciting because we're onto a new theme. So for about the last 6 or 7 weeks, we kind of talked about goal setting and margin and just making sure that you're using that time when you're goal setting and planning to really be effective about having a balanced life, right? So we talked about that remarkable life, planning for the future. We talked about systems. We talked about anchoring. We talked about all kinds of different things to make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself with more, right? That your goal setting is intentional, it's balanced, and that it actually gives you value because you come back to your goals on a regularly scheduled basis. And that was the most important thing for making the most out of your massage therapy appointments. If you remember, that's how the whole conversation started, is being consistent with your self-care. And we talked about goal setting and systems, so you guys were able to actually implement and put that into place. So what are we talking about this month? Great question, and so excited to share with you guys some stuff about mindset, because that's the other thing that I see that stumps up patients a lot, is they don't believe that they're able to get better, or that they believe their condition defines them. And it's really important to make sure you understand what's going on with your body, no question about it. So whether than just saying, oh, my ankle's a little bit sore, knowing that we have an ETFL strain, it is really important. Okay, so no knocking against different diagnoses or different conditions, but it's really important to make sure that we are more than just our condition, right? So a lot of times people will come in and they start by explaining all the stuff that's wrong with them at the beginning. And you are a person outside and beyond those things. And framing that, or having the right mindset around those kinds of things, is really, really important. So this whole month is going to be about mindset and what we like to call emotional intelligence. It's just about how in tune you are with your own emotions, and as well as the emotions of others. And so really, really great exercise that we want to start with is just called noting. And so this is going to be your homework assignment for the week, is noting. And so this is actually a type of mindfulness practice. And so some of you hear mindfulness, you think meditation, you're like, oh man, Jack, this isn't for me. Like, I don't do mindfulness. I'm not interested in trying that. And trust me, see this through, because I also struggle with meditation and mindfulness for a long time. I circled back to it 3 or 4 different times before it finally worked for me. And noting the technique that we're going to talk about today is so, so valuable. And here's the example for you. So say you have a bank account and it has $10,000 in it, lots of money, and somebody takes $8 from you. How long do you worry and stress about that? I mean, yeah, it sucks. Somebody took $8 from you, but is that going to ruin your whole day? Are you going to sit and ruminate all day over that $8, or do you let go and you move on, right? And that's the most important thing. It's just making sure that you keep that in mind, because what we're talking about here is your time, right? There's a little bit more, or maybe a little less. I'm not exactly sure how many seconds there are in a day, but that's the comparisons. Instead of dollars in a bank account, how many minutes or seconds or time is there in a day? And so if somebody cuts you off while you're driving, or somebody says something mean to you when you're in the grocery store, do you let it go? Or do you ruminate over that comment or that person that cut you off all day long? And so that's the idea of, would you let that $8 out of your bank account when you have 10,000 bother you? Probably not. So why do you let that person that cut you off while you're driving, or that person that said a mean comment to you at the grocery store, why do you ruminate and tell a story over and over and over again in your head when you know better, right? Let it go and move on. But so much easier said than done. We've all been there. I've been there. Somebody cut me off while I was driving back home this afternoon, and I had to catch myself because I was pretty grumpy when it first happened. So the idea of noting what's the value of this practice is that whenever you have a thought pop into your head, you just note that you're thinking is a good starter. Just pay attention to the fact that you have a story running on in your mind. But beyond that, level 2, and the one that I want to challenge you guys to take on today, is name the emotion. What emotion goes with the thought or the feeling that you're having? What are you experiencing in your body? A really cool research study that I read the other day showed that the average adult can name about 3 emotions, right? Happy, sad, angry. Basically about it. And the study was showing that to have true emotional literacy, or to be really able to vocalize and talk about and share what you're experiencing in your body, you need about 30 different emotions. And so that's going to be something that we talk about next week, is getting a little bit clearer on what all those are. But just for now, what are you feeling? What do you actually experience when that happens? So for example, somebody cuts me off and gets in front of me, I'd probably think it's something like, oh man, that jerk, what an a-hole, or whatever it is that pops in my head. And I'm angry and I'm frustrated and I'm mad, all these things. And so the exercise would just be noting that I'm thinking, that I have the story that I'm telling myself, and these are the emotions that I'm feeling. Because let's flip this around for a second and reframe it. Maybe the person is really in a rush to get somewhere. They're trying to get out on the highway and they don't see you, right? And they weren't trying to cut you off. They weren't trying to be a jerk. They're just trying to get on the highway, and they missed noticing you, which is terrible. Obviously, we don't want people making bad driving decisions while they're getting on the highway. But maybe they're doing the best they can. And if they're doing the best they can, do you really need to carry that anger with you all day long and judge them and carry all this weight, this burden of your anger with you all day and tell the story about how this awful person cut you off and share it with you everywhere you go? Or do you let it go and move on and say, you know what, they're doing the best they can. I've probably cut somebody off too, and I'm in a rush to get somewhere when I'm not familiar with the area that I'm driving in, and all of a sudden I see my lane come up and I've got to get over really quick. Those people that I get over really quick in front of, I probably cut off. And I wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to do my best. So a little bit shorter today because we're just introducing the new topic, but that's the homework suggestion for you, is noting. So going through your day, noting every time that you have a thought coming in, what kind of emotions are associated with that thought that you have, and then can you let it go? Or what happens when you focus on it? Does it kind of start to fade away naturally on its own, or does it stay with you? Chances are you'll probably notice that it goes away, and being more aware of what emotions you're experiencing on a daily basis is really beneficial, because I bet you'd be surprised once you spend time to think about it, how often we are the creators of these stories that we tell ourselves all day long that cause our anger and our frustration and our fear are all things in our head. They don't actually ever happen, right? There's a really famous Mark Twain quote that says there's many, many terrible things that happen in my life, and most of them haven't happened yet. Like the idea being that you're just thinking them in your head and they don't actually happen. So how often can we catch ourselves in the act of making this story and telling how awful and terrible this person is and why they're out to get us specifically? Let all that go and just move on and see where that takes you. There's a ton more stuff that we're going to get into this month. I'm so excited to share some of these ideas with you, because we don't often talk about emotions, right? It's kind of this intangible thing that you can't necessarily wrap your head around. And I promise you, I have lots of actionable takeaways to help improve emotional intelligence. And next week, we'll get into some really good examples of why this is so important to you. But as a base, as a practice, go ahead, try it out all this week. Note when you're having thoughts, note what associations, what emotions are tied with them, and keep that in mind. So when you come back next week and tune in for the next episode, you have a better idea of what's going on. So short and sweet today, introducing a new topic, and we'll see you guys all next week, 2:00 for the next episode of Wired for Wellness. So happy Wednesday, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll see you again next week.